Kathleen Celmins. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Amplified Now, and we are doing marketing differently. And with me today, I have Andee. Would you like to introduce yourself and your company?
Yeah, hi. My name's Andee. I'm the founder of DSub, where we help creators turn fans into investors.
That's awesome. So is it a platform?
It is a platform. Basically, we're in the early stages of talking with creators, and we're trying to figure out what's the best way to engage a specific segment of your fan base. I think there's a lot of tools out there that target like the wider audience of people who want to go to concerts and people who want to buy merchandise. But I think for me personally, over the last year or so, I started angel investing. And for me, as someone who is a creative, as someone who has been part of the tech industry for the past 5 years, and as someone who really believes in art and culture and helping artists make the most out of their art without having to spend so much time on the logistics of things, you really get an insight. Because I also have a lot of friends who are also angel investors. And they're also super into art, go to Burning Man every year and stuff like that. But they don't really invest in artists and creators the same way that they do with their startups. And I think that's kind of a shame, right? Like if you think about an investment mentality versus the usual fan mentality of let me spend maybe up to $100-$200 on a ticket to a concert, and the flights and hotel and whatever that might round up to maybe $500, $1,000. I'm an angel. I write smaller checks. Check sizes I've written $10,000 to $15,000.
I was gonna say even a small check's not gonna be $400.
Yeah, it's not gonna be that amount of money. But at the same time, right? It's not just about offering money. It's offering my advice. I usually join as an advisor, usually as a technical advisor because my background is software engineering. And basically, they have access to my advice, they have access to my network. So if they need technological help, if they need help recruiting, that's something that I help with. And, basically the attitude is whatever I can do to help you succeed, I would do that. Because I've invested in you, I'm invested in your success, and your success is my success.
Right, you want a return on that, right? Even angels want to get their money back.
yeah, exactly. And there is a part of it where I'm just like, oh my god, this person is super cool. They have a vision for the world that I want to see more of. But at the same time, even though I have that attitude towards a lot of artists, I don't have that much money to be that generous with just donations or just by buying merchandise. And that's not to say that I don't believe these things are super valuable, the things that they're doing. It's just that I only have so much cash, and if it can come back to me in some way, then I can put it out there again, right? It's kind of a amplification effect.
Cool. So because the idea of turning fans into investors is such a cool thing, because in the content marketing world, that's you just added a whole step to the customer journey, right? The visitor turns to a lead, turns to a subscriber, turns to a customer, turns to a raving fan, turns to an investor, which is such a cool next step. That's the dotted line, part of the whole content marketing world that sure, there is some segment of your raving fans that will throw money at you for more than just a sweatshirt or whatever merchandise it is. So what kind of creators do you like working with?
I think right now, it's mostly digital creators. So what they put out there is in some digital form, because I think traditionally digital artists, whether that be you post dance videos online, or you have you draw digital art,
illustration
or you
or
could
something.
use YouTube illustrations. A lot of that stuff is really undervalued, primarily because it's so easy to copy, right? People say, oh, you can't monetize this sort of stuff because, well, like if you illustrated something, like I can like literally take a screenshot and then now I can duplicate it and blah 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 blah. And even though that's not legal, people still do it all the time. They steal images and then they like make swag and merchandise, and digital artists get upset about this sort of stuff all the time. And the thing is, in the last like really 5-ish years, 5-10 years, we've seen a lot of development around blockchain technology, and that was one thing that I didn't mention before. Is going to be based off of the blockchain, because I'm sure you've heard the news with like people selling like his NFTs for like $69 million and stuff like that. And that's an example of like someone who's a super fan that you could very easily turn into an investor. But number two, NFTs are the type of digital asset that has interesting properties that right now we're really early in the ecosystem. And what you're seeing from most blockchain companies is like more of an equity, like financial instrument kind of thing. But I do think there's a lot of opportunity for just using the technology itself to build things in a way that you have like certain safety guarantees for creators. One of the things that sets blockchain apart from other technologies is the decentralization aspect of it, right? So one of the biggest selling points of being able to say, hey, we like host your data on the blockchain instead of us hosting data privately in our servers is if we were to go out of business as a company, you can still take your data. Like it's still out there and it's still in public servers. And maybe you need to hire some engineers to like extract that data. You'll always have access to your private key, so you're the only one who can decode it. But like that has certain safety guarantees that I think a lot of the bigger platforms, like if you think about like YouTube and Twitch, a part of the platform and like Patreon is that like you are locking in your subscribers, uh, and you are locking in the creators because it's very difficult for a creator to move fans off of a platform once they've already they landed onto the platform, right? You have to enter your credit card information, you have to enter your email, blah 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 blah, like all these things. And if you want to say, oh, like, hey, like Patreon is actually like abusing me as a creator, or Patreon is like cutting me off from support, they're like not helping me. Haven't been able to reach my fans. I haven't been able to log into my account. Like, what can I do about this? Number one, like Patreon isn't really incentivized to actually like help because like you can't move off their platform, right? Like they already have your fans' credit card information and emails, and this is why a lot of creators nowadays are starting their own email lists, right? Because that's a way of directly accessing your fans. But then that's like a lot to manage, and at the same time, like where are you storing these emails? Probably like in a Google spreadsheet. What if you lose access to that Google spreadsheet? Then at this point, you're relying on another centralized platform to, have the good graces to give you access to what is your data, which honestly, I feel like it's not fair, right? Like you're the person who's owned that data. You're the person who's actually worked. You've made your creations. You've built a brand. You've done the funnel work of converting someone who's like a casual observer to giving you some sort of information that you can potentially monetize in the future. But if you don't own your data, at the end of the day, you're still vulnerable because if you're, I don't know, I guess like as someone who has like worked in the tech industry for the past couple of years, it's kind of like obvious to me that like a lot of times tech companies don't have your best interests at heart, right? Like Facebook, like honestly, can we say Facebook is like a good for the world? I mean, it's kind of questionable. And
Yeah.
Google's done a lot of like really questionable things, and like I personally like only really trust Apple with my data because they have really good encryption capabilities.
They say
The
that's why
other thing,
Siri's not as good as like any of the other voice recognition because Siri's not always listening.
yeah, Siri's not always listening, and a
Google's
lot of
always
times,
listening. Amazon's
Google,
always
yeah,
listening.
yeah, exactly.
Siri's not always listening, so she gets it wrong sometimes, and I'm like,
Yeah,
that's okay
that's
with
okay.
me.
That's okay.
Like,
I'm willing to trade off
uh-huh.
some effectiveness for like you like not literally like listening in on everything I say. But I want to correct. I think Siri is always listening, but the way that they do data processing is a lot of it is done locally and it's only sent to their servers in very specific instances. And that's like the nice thing, right? Like you have control over your data. You can choose what actually goes out to the company versus someone like Google, like they just take whatever they can get. And I think at the end of the day, that's not beneficial to consumers. And yeah,
The analogy I always use is that like the tech companies, and I've been online a long time, and so there was a time where in 2014 Facebook took away the fan page reach in like a 99% capacity, and so then you had to start paying for it. And my analogy was always that you can think of Facebook or any of the tech companies as like the benevolent landlord that's like, look, I have this land. I'm probably never going to charge you for the land. You can build whatever you want, but you don't own the land. And people are like, well, okay. And then they like, then X amount of time goes by and the landlord comes back and they're like, so we lied. We're wrong. Now you need to start paying for the land or like move your house, right? Like it's impossible to move a house off of a piece of property, right? It's you didn't build, you trusted their word that you didn't need to build like something on wheels or whatever. And so I believe that we're talking the same language here. How do people find out about you? Do you connect with the investor? Do you connect with the artist? Do you make that like, is it like a dating site? Like,
it's not really a dating site. So the site is primarily geared towards creators, and we rely on them to bring in their own fan base. Right now, we're still in the early stages, and we're really. I think like the way that I think about it is that there's like two main audiences that a creator could want to go for. Um, they can choose to use. So this is something that I learned after talking with a PM at Patreon. Because there's like really like a couple of categories of fans, and depending on the creator, it might make more sense to focus on one versus the other. Number one, you like focus on a couple of like really big whales, like fans who always shows up at your concerts. They're like willing to fly in and all that stuff. So like I think like that archetype is like one of my friends like Sam. He like supports artists on Patreon. He like spends a lot of like time on money on like music and art and culture, and he's like willing to spend a lot of money. I think he recently spent like $5,000 on an NFT from his favorite music producer. And so that's like one category of fans that you can focus on. I think the other category, which I think is someone, if you think about like Hank Green and John Green from like Crash Course on YouTube. They recently, this is really cool. They released a Crash Course coin. And basically what it is like, a piece of metal. But you can pay either $100 or $500 for it. And this is like kind of a monetization strategy that is aimed at your broader fan base, right? And I think like most creators would probably want to experiment between these two sort of models. But you can think about that pretty differently. But yeah, we don't match. We're not like a discovery platform. We rely on you to bring your own fans onto the platform, and
But it's
like,
teaching creators how to do that.
yeah,
How
teaching
to
creators
turn
how to
them
do
into
that, and
investors.
how to do that outreach, how to do that conversion. Because I think a lot of times creators are really good at their art and their craft, but they're not so good on like the business side of things.
And depending
that's
on the
like,
artist, it's like by design, right? Like
yeah,
you
yeah,
don't want
exactly.
like that's not our vibe or whatever.
Yeah, yeah, and I think like it's definitely like very like a different avenue too, because at least for me as an artist, I would feel much more comfortable taking money from somebody if it was because like they saw something, they saw potential, and it was a way for them to like help me get a head start instead of just like something donation based. Anything donation based, I think like there's like not really any expectations tied to it, and like maybe that's okay for some people, but for me, I kind of like it when people have like great expectations of me,
Sure.
right? Like
Yeah.
I want people to like believe that I can like do more and be more, and a large part of that is like maybe it's not like maybe it's like some sort of pressure because yeah, like they do expect a return from you, but maybe that's the thing that you need to like light a fire under your ass.
Right. I think maybe
can,
it's
like,
accountability too, where it's
yeah,
like
yeah.
you are not accountable to a sweatshirt. Like it's just a sweatshirt, right? Even if it has your logo on it, it like it stops there. But I love this. So how can creators who feel like they need some help with their monetization, how can they learn more about you?
Yeah, I have a website. It's dsub.squarespace.com. You can also find me on Twitter. I'm at Andee Liao, ANDEELIAO. Feel free to DM me.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And we'll put wherever anybody's watching this, we'll put links to how to connect with Andee on Twitter and on her website below on you. If you're watching this on YouTube, it's in the description. If you're watching this on our blog, it's linked below. Thank you so much.